Listen, whispering within your soul, hints of laughter, hints of joy, sweet songs of sadness, of quenchless yearning for the light, for my love, your true home. Long your heart has played the dancer, long you've toyed with mirror shadows of the treasures left behind you, deep in your soul. Long you've plumbed the dark for answers, long you've begged from beggars' empty hands, gifts of life they too were seeking, gifts none could share. Friend, how long will you wander? Friend, as long as you seek your home in a land where all are strangers, love locks her door. Leave to the weak his craven life, to the coward leave his dreaming. Oh, my saint, wake up, reclaim the light, seek the truth behind all seeming. Leave to the weak his craven life, to the coward leave his dreaming. Oh, my saint, wake up, reclaim the light, seek the truth behind all seeming. Turn, turn, turn within, in silence of soul, in cave of love, find my abode. Listen, listen, whispering within your soul, hints of laughter, hints of joy, sweet songs of blessedness, of quenchless yearning for the light, for my love, your true home.
Good morning again. Welcome to Sunday service. Welcome to those of you online. We're very happy that you're here and you've joined us. My name's Bryan. This is my wife, Carmenza. And today we're doing a topic and reading about many are the pathways to truth. And this is a reading from Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriya-yoga. These are commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. On the dedication page of Swami Kriyananda's book, The Path, appears the following account. A group of Paramhansa Yogananda's disciples had gone with him to see a movie about the life of Gyandev, a great saint of medieval India. Afterwards, they gathered and listened to the master explain certain subtler aspects of that inspiring story. A young man in the group mentioned another film he had seen years earlier in India about the life of Mirabai, a famous woman saint. If you'd seen that movie, he exclaimed, you wouldn't have even liked this one. Well, the guru rebuked him. Why make such comparisons? The lives of the saints manifest in various ways the same one God. The Bible contains a similar account in the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 9. And John said, Master, we saw one casting out devils in thy name, and we forbade him, because he followeth not with us. And Jesus said unto him, Forbid him not, for he that is not against us is for us. The more central a truth, the greater number of contexts in which it can be applied. Truth is like a pure white light, containing within itself the full spectrum of the rainbow. Let no one tell you what your path to God ought to be. Many are the paths. Select your own according to the dictates of your own nature, no matter how and out of step that puts you with other people. Sri Krishna in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita states, trying even unsuccessfully to fulfill one's own spiritual duty, that is dharma, is better than pursuing unsuccessfully the duties of others. Better death itself in the pursuance of one's own duties. The pursuance of another's duties is fraught with spiritual danger. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om. I'm so glad that Swami mentioned in this reading about, the one light containing the rainbow of colors. When I was a boy, about 7 or 8 years old, I think what was a very deep and mysterious, maybe spiritual experience. Someone gave me a prism, a triangular glass prism, and clear glass. And I took it out in the sunlight, as I was advised to do, and to see what would happen. And this beautiful rainbow of colors appeared on the concrete. I was in Sacramento area at that time. And the colors were so vibrant and so pure. I'd never seen anything quite like that. And a couple years later, I started taking art lessons because I was fascinated, in part because I was fascinated by these colors that I'd seen. And I started working, as we do as artists, in inks or pigments or paints. In my case, it was painting. And I could not get that same luminosity as I saw in the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. We name them 7 colors. And they are all colors that are light colors as opposed to reflected light colors of pigments. So I only really resolved this in my mind, I'm embarrassed to say, just a few days ago, looking up what's the difference between mixing light colors and mixing pigmented colors. Pigments get their colors from minerals or chemicals. Nowadays, we can form chemical colors. And you can get a whole spectrum. I think the Pantone, which is sort of the graphic artist's authority in interior Designers Authority on Colors. I think they have, in 2025, they had close to 2,400 colors identified. So, but these are all an approximation, and it occurred to me as I was kind of learning about this, the colors that we see from pigments or dyes, like the blue in the carpet or the blue in the chair, that's blue because the light's hitting it, and that object is absorbing red and yellow light. And so what's reflected back is blue. So those is a way of absorbing or subtracting. It's subtracting colors for us. So I had the experience, and still have the experience, if I mix my crayons or pastels or paints, of mixing colors, and that not only may result in a new color being combined, but it can result in the loss of intensity because it's subtractive mixing. It's taking things away. If you have a red and a green light, you can do this even with glow sticks, and you combine them, you get yellow light. You get a more intense light, a brighter light, because it's additive. So light color mixing is additive, but pigment color mixing is subtractive. If I take green paint and red paint and mix them, it gets muddy. It's kind of almost a black, like a brown color. And throughout my time learning about art, we would always try to deal with this challenge. We knew that we didn't want to mix too many colors because you lose intensity, you lose saturation. So we were dealing with, complementary colors and ways to try to mimic this beauty, luminosity of the color from light. And that's all coming from, in my case with the prism, from the sunlight. Any pure white light will do the same thing. You can use the light on your cell phone to, if the room's dark enough, you can put it through a prism and see the same rainbow effect. Well, imagine if the sun, Yogananda uses this analogy a lot. Kriya-yoga uses it. This is a reading from Rays of the One Light, where that light is truth, or that light is God. We can think of it either way. Imagine some people sitting around looking at the prism dispersed rainbow of colors, and somebody saying, green is the true manifestation of that truth. It's the only true one, is what the extreme would be. It would be absurd, right? It would be because everybody can see that there's other colors there. And that's different than, you might have a preference for a color. You might want to wear certain colors in your garments. You might want certain colors. That's fine to have those preferences, but to say that one color is the only manifestation of this true light, of truth, of God. And yet that's what a lot of dogma and religions does. It says this is the only true light. It says it's the best way. And, religions have, it's interesting because the religions that are kind of close to each other, you could think of them as colors that are close to each other, maybe turquoise and a blue-green, very close to each other. They tend to have the strongest arguments about the subtle differences between what they are and what they, if you look at the history of Catholics and Protestants in Europe in a certain era, fighting to the death really about which one was right, people being disemboweled in public, have their, people being killed. Or you look at Shia and Sunni Muslims, their deepest sort of antagonism is with a branch that is very close to them. And of course, from a a non-Christian perspective, the Catholic and Protestant wars essentially seem very much like hair splitting. And this is because they are doing, any dogma is subtractive, much like pigmented light. It's not that pure light of truth, it's subtractive. And so that allows people to say, not only is this my favorite color, this is the only color that really reflects the God of light. So I think it was interesting that in this Bible passage that's quoted, that it's the direct disciples of Jesus who come to him and say, somebody was casting out devils in our name, and we said, don't do that. We forbade it. We limited it. And fortunately, the Christ was still in his body and still able to correct them and say, no, that's not the case. If they are actually healing people in the name of Christ consciousness, it doesn't matter. If they're not opposing us, if they aren't putting out a dogma that's saying we're wrong, then they are with us because they're one of those many colors that get dispersed from the true light. Direct disciples of Paramhansa Yogananda went through a similar experience. The SRF direct disciples sort of fomented a campaign against Ananda, saying, we want to limit what you can say in Yogananda's name, even the term self-realization and many of the aspects. And the war wasn't, they weren't disemboweling people, but they used the current version, the modern version of war, which is the legal system in the courtrooms. And it came down to copyright lawsuit. And this dragged on for years, and it resolved. Master, I think, guided the resolution of it, that we and Ananda were not ending up having to limit or, reserve talking about Yogananda's teachings to the world, and, only for SRF to do that. So there must be a tendency for us to, once we find a pathway that works for us, to become dogmatic about it. I mean, these are very high souls, both our Guru Bhais at SRF and these direct disciples of Jesus. These are very, very high souls, and still they're prone to this. Well, this works for us, and this kind of subtractive, basically a subtractive or contractive aspect. Master was very strong in his advocacy about all religions, as we heard in this great applicable reading that Carmenza did from Whispers. Many times, especially in the 1930s and 1940s, Master talked about the unity of all religions, of all true religions, and he was a very, very strong advocate of that. In 1935, he was published in a book from a talk he gave, and the talk was titled, "What 19 Faiths Contribute to Spiritual Technique?" And this is available, you can read it. And he talked about 19 different religions, Baha'ism, Catholicism, Protestantism. He talks about what they're good at, what they contribute, and what they should probably leave behind, that's holding them back. And it's just this beautiful thread. And that was in the mid-1930s. He gave a talk at a Congress for all religions, and they published it. Master said, it is only by a comparative study of religions that we can find the path best suited to us. Like Ramakrishna, Paramhansa Ramakrishna tried out, he was maybe 60 years older than Yogananda, he tried out and literally tried out all different religions. He became a Muslim, he became a Christian. As a child, he was a great worshiper of Kali, the goddess Kali in Hinduism. And really, he concluded the same thing. In 1942, Yogananda dedicated the Hollywood Church. It was finished being built and refurbished. And this is what he said at that dedication. When we walk in city lanes, we are fenced in by walls. But when we are riding in an airplane, all those barriers disappear. One undivided vastness greets our eyes as we walk in the city of theological beliefs. Our vision is walled in by dogmatic limitations. But now self-realization offers the religionists of America and the world an opportunity to ride aloft in the airship of a church of all religions. He said this Hollywood church he dedicated as the second church of all religions. The first one was in Encinitas, and the cliff erosion caused it to fall into the sea. The church of all religions, and to give a vision of a vast brotherhood of all peoples and oneness in the worship of our one Father God. So this, the reading of the reference to the Gita is about finding your own Dharma and finding that truth. And really, this is what Yogananda is saying. Yogananda said, you don't even have to believe in God. If you do kriya practices, you will still attain enlightenment. So he didn't have these strictures. He didn't have this contractive relationship to other people of other paths. Yogananda said, if you don't know who your guru is, I will take you on and help you find your guru. So some people here, your guru may be Christ. And maybe you came to that early in life because maybe you were born into that, but maybe you came to it through Yogananda. Yogananda's mission, really, that he called it the second coming of Christ because he came to clarify those Christ teachings. And he said that he was the last in this line of 5 gurus for this mission of clarifying the light of Christ, the light of Christ consciousness. He didn't say there are no other gurus. He acknowledged and welcomed other gurus of many faiths, of any faiths, really. So let me just close with a prayer. I guess what I'm encouraging us to do is to be additive, like the colors of light, to be additive, to reclaim that beauty and luminosity of dispersed light from the one truth. This prayer is so close to what Carmenza read, but I'll read it anyways. His prayer is, our one Father, we are traveling by many true paths unto thy one abode of light. Show us the one highway of common realization, where all bypaths of theological beliefs meet. Make us feel that the diverse religions are branches of thy one tree of truth. Bless us that we may enjoy the intuition-tested, ripe, luscious fruits of self-knowledge hanging from all the branches of manifold scriptural teachings. God bless.
These teachings, this reading reminded me when I was a young person, very young, I was a very devout Catholic, and I prayed all the time, and my mom took me to church often, and I always wanted to understand, and I pondered the teachings, and and I prayed a lot. And around the time high school came, I left the Catholic Church because it no longer gave me what I needed. I wanted more closeness. I wanted something different, and the Catholic Church wasn't doing that for me then. My mom was very upset about it, and she prayed and prayed, and she thought I was going to go to hell. And so I told her, well, I didn't switch sides. I'm not now, praying to the devil. I'm not, I just want something different, but I'm still, I'm still having a moral compass, and I still want God. And I was a Buddhist for many years, and then I found Master, and I knew that I have found home, that I found someone. Master was going to teach me what I needed to understand and help me to find God. I never tried to convince my mom to come onto this path because I knew that she felt her connection with God was what she wanted, and that's what she needed for herself. And she came to my initiation to this path, to my discipleship initiation, and she only questioned a little bit about why Yogananda instead of Jesus, but she was okay because she knew that I was connecting with God. So Master says that he told us that this is that the time has come to know God. And that once you find your path, that you hold on to it and make it your own, that you connect with God every day, deep meditation, you meditate until you feel His presence. And that you hold on so much, not that everybody should do it the way you do it, but that you do it your own and you connect. And it reminded me of this young woman in Rwanda, the Rwanda genocide that happened in 1994. There was a young woman, she was still in college, second year of college, and her country all of a sudden, there was a new president who started the propaganda and the energy that his tribe, the Hutu, should get rid of another tribe, the Tutsi. And he was empowering everyone and demanding that all the Hutus will go and kill all the Tutsis. And it began, and so then this young woman who was a devout Catholic from very little, she prayed and prayed to God, and she wanted the Divine Mother to appear to her, and so she was very devoted. And so while this started, she convinced a minister from the tribe that was doing the killings. She convinced him to hide her, and she and 6 other women he hid in his bathroom upstairs, and it was a bathroom 6 by 5 square feet. And they couldn't flush the toilet only when the toilet on the other side got flushed. And they were there for 3 months. And they could hear on the other side everywhere the killings, because it was happening. I mean, they killed a million people in 3 months. Her brother, it was just all these killings. And she said that she could feel this evil energy, the malevolence, she could feel it. And if she didn't stay praying, if she didn't pray when she was awake, she wanted to go kill those people that were doing the killing. And she said it was such a strong force that was coming through that she had to fervently pray And so many miracles happen in that bathroom for her because Master says, when you call on God, he comes. He says, if you think me near, I will be near. She prayed and she asked the minister to give her a Bible. And so she studied the passages of the Bible and she prayed and it just became a living presence those 3 months. And all these miracles happen. And I think they lost half of their weight, because there was very little food that this minister was able to, because, he had 8 children living in that, and then they never found out that those 7 women were in that bathroom. And she wrote a book about her experiences, and she went on to write another book because she went all over the country and found all the miracles that happened to people that call on God during that time. And so she wrote another book about all of those miracles, and she dedicated the rest of her life to have peace come into her country and for people to forgive, because people wanted to go and kill the ones who killed their families. And he says, okay, so if we kill each other, who's going to be left? And so then she's dedicated all her life to finding peace for her country. And that story has stayed with me because of the devotion and her praying to God and her calling on God and her persistence just brought God's presence there the whole time. Master says that difficult times are coming, and we all have difficult times all the time, both inside of ourselves, our families, our friends, in our cities, in our country, in the world. There's difficulties that come all the time, and that he says we have to arm ourselves with loyalty, devotion, attunement to the Guru, and regular meditation. That this will keep us in the battle and that will help us win the battle. That loyalty to God is God's first law. That sometimes people get lost. When that force of bad energy comes, people get lost because they think that fighting the external world is what's going to win. But Master says is staying inward and connected to God is what's going to win the battle for you. There was a Romanian Jewish couple that converted to not Catholicism, but to Christianity during World War II. Richard Wurbrand, and he, after the war, the communists took over Romania and got all the ministers in public, and they needed to denounce Christianity and convert to communism. And him and his wife refused, and they knew what it was going to happen to us, but they decided that they were not going to deny Jesus. And they were both in prison, but he was in prison for much longer, and he was in prison for 14 years. And, solitary confinement for many of those years, and tortured. He was tortured on a regular basis. All he had to do was deny Jesus, and that he would convert to communism, and he refused. And for 14 years, half of the bones in his body were broken. And he says the more they tortured him, the more he felt God's presence. Jesus was right there. The more that they thought that the more that they actually, break bones and stuff, that he was going to convert. But the more they did that, the happier he felt, the joy that God he felt, Jesus was right there with him every single moment. And it helps to understand that when we have difficult times, Jesus, God and Master, is not there to take away the suffering, is to be able to get us to understand that they are there with us through the difficult times, because difficult times are not there to punish us. It's not a punishment from God or anyone else. It's for us to learn and to get rid of what keeps us away from God. Because if we stay the way we are and if we don't have any suffering, we will never call on God. Because unfortunately, it is when we have difficult times that we remember God. Because most of the times, don't remember God when we're having fun. We remember God when we're having a difficult time. And so then it happens that, that we learn through adversity, we learn through difficult times. And then it's not, sometimes we pray, take away this. Let us, I don't want to be sick, take away this sickness. And if it doesn't go away, then we think that God doesn't love us. And many people have left their path because we have difficulty and we call on God and he didn't come. But if we're calling for something, we're not calling for the right thing. We need to call for God to be there. Because when we can endure pain, we can endure suffering when someone is holding our hand and bringing us joy. Who cares if we're having pain, if we're having the joy of God? And that's what Master, there was one time that I was watching this movie, and I don't remember the name of the movie, and the way that the camera was set, it was this young man who, he was about his life, and every time he came home, he would start talking to someone, and the camera just showed him talking, and he would come and tell all that happened, and you wouldn't believe what happened to me, and then he would go on, and I remember you, and then I brought you this sweet, and he will give it to them, and then he's like cried and got angry, and it was just like an ongoing conversation, and I thought I want to see this person they're talking to, because the camera never showed, It was towards the end, because he had all these adventures and all this stuff, and then he was just come home and then just talk. And then the camera eventually turned it, and it was a picture of Jesus. And it was a very active altar, because there was pieces of food that he had given and then had shared, and, his things that he had given him and stuff. And it was just the relationship. And it impressed me so much, because I think up to that point, I never thought of just argue and complain and, and why did, and it was just this ongoing relationship with Jesus. And that's the kind of relationship that Master advocated for us to do, that bring him your suffering, no matter what you got, just give it to him. And we always tend to hide our mistakes. And it's like, no, God doesn't want us to hide our mistakes. He wants us to give it to him. Take this from me. Give me comfort, and just give whatever you got. That Master is there to hold our hands while we're having a hard time. May we all find that kind of devotion and that kind of connection with God in our meditation. It can be external or internal. The more you internalize it, the more that you know that he is right there, because, you just got to think of Master is like this statue. And eventually, if you connect with the energy of the statue, that statue will come alive for you and answer you. You need to be able to calm your thoughts and listen. Listen, listen, listen. And he will answer. He will come to you the more that you connect with that stillness.
You devas of woodland, of mountain and field, come shower on us blessings and whisper